Hello friends! Welcome to a new Happy Learning video. We already know that during prehistoric times, trade began with barter. Yes, that's it, the exchange of one thing for another. The problem with barter was that often the desires of both parties didn't align. For example, if someone had apples and wanted sheep, they needed to find someone else who had sheep and also wanted to exchange them for apples. And that was certainly not easy. That's why, over 2,600 years ago, in a country called Lydia, which is now known as Turkey, someone had a brilliant idea. What if instead of exchanging apples for sheep, we exchanged them for small pieces of metal? The idea was to find something that had the same value for everyone, and that's how the first coins were created. Some with the face of the king of Lydia, who ordered their minting, and others, like this one with a roaring lion, which is believed to be the world's first coin. Oh, how frightening! But over 1,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened in China. They invented banknotes. There was no longer a need to carry around large and heavy bags filled with metal conines. Now, bundles of paper bills could be carried, which had the same value as coins and weighed much less. This made trade much easier. And we continue to advance in time, arriving in the 20th and 21st centuries. Yes, to our present days. Today, we have bank cards and digital cards that allow us to pay in stores without carrying cash in our pockets. With the same card or with our phone, we can pay anywhere. However, we need to have money in the bank because otherwise, those cards are worthless. Well, we've now learned the extraordinary history of money. But you must remember one very important thing. The best things in life, like friendship, family, or love, are free. They cannot be bought with all the money in the world. Oh, and before we say goodbye, here's an interesting fact. The earliest forms of money were not coins. No, they were objects like seashells, animal teeth, precious stones, or salt. Salt was used to preserve food, and since there were no refrigerators in the past, salt was essential. Great! You've completed the video. Now continue the route with the reading card, the video game, and the activity.
Have a look at these images. Do you know what they are? Yes, of course. They're banks. What a curious name. Today, we're going to discover what banks really are, what their origin is, where they come from, and why they have such an interesting name. Today, we're going to learn about the history of banks. Even though banks nowadays are very complicated and modern, the first banks were very simple, first appearing more than 4,000 years ago in places like Babylon, India, and Sumer. In the beginning, banks were not companies with many workers, but were very wealthy people who lent grain to people who needed it. In the end, they lent so much grain that they were called lenders. People who lend. But how did they become so rich by lending something? Well, it's very easy because they didn't do it for free. After a while, everyone who received grain from these people had to pay them back more than they had borrowed. For example, a farmer who wanted to grow wheat would borrow 4 sacks of grain from somebody who had excess seed, that is, from a lender. After a while, once he had grown lots and lots of wheat, he had to pay the 4 bags of seeds back, plus an extra bag. Thus, the farmer was happy because he could grow wheat, and the lender was also happy because he had received more seeds than he had lent to the farmer. He had made profit. In addition, as time went by, they started to lend many more things. They lent gold, spices, and, during the ancient Greek period, coins. Little by little, the lenders, also called usurers, had more and more money and acquired a lot of power, evolving into big companies. Companies that lent money. They had become banks. In addition to lending money, ancient banks, like today's banks, also served to store it. In ancient Greece and Rome, banks began to be used as safe places where people kept their savings, their money. So, if they wanted to go on a trip, they could leave their wealth in a protected place so that no one could steal it. As history progressed, banks became increasingly important. During the Renaissance period, which took place in Europe between the 15th and 16th centuries, Italy became the center of European trade, where people from many countries came to buy and sell things. But of course, since they all came from different places, they all used different currencies. In the city of Pisa, where the famous Leaning Tower is located, people bought and sold products with more than 7 currencies. What a mess! This forced many merchants to spend hours and hours exchanging coins amongst themselves. Over the years, banks have become very large and complicated companies. Their main function remains the same as it was 4,000 years ago. On one hand, people keep their money inside banks and thus have it protected. On the other hand, banks continue to lend money, for example, to people who want to buy a house. In the future, these people will have to pay the bank back the money they have lent them, and they will have to do it with interest, meaning with a little bit of extra money. If, for example, the bank lends you 100 coins, in the end, you have to pay back those 100 coins plus 10 extra coins. So, those 10 extra coins are called interest, of course. The interest the bank has for lending money. That's a very good name, interest. Interesting, isn't it? Understanding how banks work is very important to understand how our society and capitalism work. Did you know that the 10 biggest banks in the world have more than $25 trillion? Blimey! With all that money, they could buy entire countries. Well, happy friends, now you know what banks are, where they come from, and why they are called banks. But above all, you have already seen that learning about economics costs very little, and that the best investment is education.
Search us and subscribe to Happy Learning's YouTube channel.
Do you know what this is? It's money, and today we're going to learn all about its history, what it's used for, and lots of fascinating facts. Money has been used for a very long time to buy all kinds of things, clothes or food. It is also used to go to the cinema or pay our teachers. Money today is essential for our society to function. Bookshops, restaurants, shopping centers. There are many companies that sell products that we can buy. There are also people like taxi drivers and hairdressers who don't sell us things but sell us their services, their work. Taxi drivers take us from one place to another, and hairdressers cut our hair and make us look beautiful. All this, of course, in exchange for money. All this buying and selling, this exchange of money, is called economics, and it is fundamental in understanding how the world works. That's why adults always talk about it, the economy. But did you know that money has not always existed? Thousands and thousands of years ago, in prehistoric times, people didn't use money because it hadn't even been invented yet. So, how did people buy clothes or food? Well, they used another method that still exists. It's called barter. And although it has a strange name, it's actually quite easy to understand. Bartering is simply when people exchange one thing for another without using money. For example, if a friend of yours has a piece of chewing gum and you exchange it for a piece of candy, you would have bartered. The exchange was done and money wasn't used. Simple, huh? Bartering is something that human beings have been doing for a very long time. It actually started in prehistoric times, during a period called Neolithic. It was then when human beings went from being nomadic to sedentary. Before, when they were nomads, to eat, they had to go from one place to another, hunting and looking for wild fruit. Later, when they discovered agriculture and farming, they were able to stay in villages as their food source was on their land, which made them sedentary. Their villages and towns therefore gradually grew and began to produce more food than they could consume. So some people were able to dedicate their time to other skills, such as making crafts. But of course, artisans also have to eat. So they decided to exchange the things they had made, such as jars, vases, and pots, for the food produced by the farmers and herders. So that's how it all began. Bartering became a way of life. But as the years went by, villages became bigger and produced more and more things, making it even more difficult to trade them. How much wheat can a stone axe cost? And how many chickens does a jug cost? And how many pears can I exchange for 4 cows? It's getting complicated. Do you know how they solved this problem though? Very easily. They invented money. Now, a coin was worth the same as a pear, for example. If before a hen was exchanged for 10 pears, now it was exchanged for 10 coins. And if before a cow was exchanged for 50 pears, now it was exchanged for 50 coins. So instead of carrying a big bag of pears, they only had to carry a little bag of coins. This made shopping so much easier. But did you know that in the beginning, money was not coins and notes? No, in some places they used snail shells, in others precious metals, and in others salt. Yes, indeed, salt. Because salt was used to preserve food, and as they didn't have refrigerators, it was essential. Well, happy friends, so now you know what barter is and where money came from. But you have also seen that learning about economics is not that complicated, and that the best investment is, without a doubt, a good education.
Do you know what economics is? Many of us don't know for sure. We usually think it's about numbers, formulas, and difficult mathematical operations. But it's not like that. Economics is about people and the decisions we make to make the best use of everything we have in the best way possible. The economy is the way in which people organize themselves to produce, use, and share everything they need, everything that has value. But people do not have everything in a large quantity. On the contrary, we usually have limitations. So, we have to think about what we should do with everything. We have to decide how to use it. Imagine you are a chef in your own kitchen. You have ingredients to make delicious cakes, but you only have a little bit of each thing. So you have to decide how to use your ingredients in the best way to make cake that everyone will want to eat. That's like economics. It's about making wise choices to use what we have to satisfy our needs and wants. In economics, there are three main things we usually talk about: resources, needs and wants, and decision-making. Let's get to know them. Resources are like ingredients in the kitchen. They are the things we use to make something. For example, the wood from a tree to make a table, or the oven to make cake, are resources. Needs and wants. We all need things like food and clothes. But we also want things like new toys or travel. Well, economics helps us decide how to meet those needs and wants with the resources we have. Decision making. In economics, we have to make decisions because we already know that we don't have infinitive resources. For example, if you decide to spend your money on buying a game, it means that you won't be able to spend it on buying something else that you might also want or need. That's why we can't just spend it madly. There are also many other things to decide, like how many trees to cut down to make a table, or whether to make tables or chairs, or how many cakes to make and what kind. In short, economics helps us make smart choices to use what we have in the best way possible to satisfy our needs and wants and our hunger. How good this pizza is! The economy is cool, isn't it? Bye, friends, until the next video.
Great! You've completed the video. Now continue the route with the reading card, the video game, and the activity.